In classic me fashion, I accidentally deleted the first chunk of footage that I filmed for this video, so I'm refilming this again. If the lighting or anything is inconsistent, I am sorry. It's a sensitive topic, it's a topic that makes me uncomfortable, and a topic that probably makes a lot of other people uncomfortable, so let's all be uncomfortable together. Hi, welcome back to my channel, Accidental Beauty. If you guys are new, welcome. My name is Laura. I post videos once a week, mainly about makeup and sometimes about hair, fashion, lifestyle, beauty, skincare, all that good stuff. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification button so you get updates whenever I upload a new video. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I've got links for my social media accounts, affiliate links, and discount codes in the description box below. So I would really appreciate it if you guys could follow me there, check those out, use them as needed. That would be awesome. I've also got a tutorial for the look that I created today. It'll be up on my IGTV, link in the description box. Today, I'm going to be talking about body hair. So if you want to be uncomfortable with me, then keep on watching. I've done a fair amount of research and compiled a lot of notes to make this video, so I've got my laptop sitting like just off the corner of this screen, so if I'm sort of looking back and forth like this, that's why. Why am I making this video? For a few reasons. Number one, I was an early bloomer, and I'm also a fairly hairy person, and I've got some hormone imbalances, which I'm not going to go into detail in this video. So as a result, when I was a teenager especially, I was incredibly self-conscious and embarrassed about the amount of body hair that I had, especially compared to other girls in my grade. I seemed to go to school with a lot of late bloomers, so I was just incredibly self-conscious about my body shape, my body hair, just everything about myself. I just felt very insecure and I hated myself for a long time. So yeah, there's that. I also took swimming lessons for years, and again, as I was going through puberty, my body changed. So having to wear a swimsuit with my body changing, my weight fluctuating quite a bit, and having to deal with body hair in places that I wasn't used to, it was just a real fun time. Throughout the years, I've tried various hair removal methods and techniques. I've tried shaving, waxing, laser hair removal, various hair removal and hair bleaching creams. I've tried a lot of different things. And it's gotten to the point where now I'm not sure how much I care about hair removal, or do I care the same amount that I did when I was a teenager now that I have more access to different ways of removing hair? Do I care less because it's just gotten to the point where it's just like so much effort and time? That's sort of what I'm exploring throughout this video. The second reason why I'm making this video is I noticed my friends and peers and just general society's attitudes towards women's body hair. There was one time where I was hanging out with a group of friends, and one male friend happened to mention something along the lines of, it would be weird if women didn't shave or remove body hair. And one female friend of mine responded to him saying something along the lines of, women should do what they want with their bodies, but I am going to continue removing body hair. And that kind of got me thinking, that kind of got the gears going in my head, that sort of encouraged me a bit more to start compiling together something to create a video like this. Because I'm not sure how I feel about that statement. Like, at the time, I was really angry. I wanted to say something, but also I didn't want to get into an argument and go down that rabbit hole at the time. Now, I guess here we are. I guess I'm going down that rabbit hole. I was really angry at the time because I thought, especially this particular female friend of mine is quite a strong feminist, and I thought, like, well, isn't that kind of hypocritical? Because aren't you saying, like, yeah, women can do what they want with their bodies, but you're going to, quote unquote, like, subject yourself to the patriarchy's view of what women's bodies should look like? But I would probably have answered the same thing, and I also consider myself a feminist. So, are we hypocrites? Maybe. And I kind of wanted to explore that. in this video. So anyways, that got me thinking, is it considered weird, objectively weird, for women to want to stop removing their body hair? Or alternatively, is it considered weird for women to want to remove their body hair? Is it weird to be thinking about body hair at all? Probably. As I mentioned earlier, is it considered unfeminist to shave or remove body hair? Is that sort of feeding into the patriarchy's view of what women's bodies should look like? And that also got me thinking, how do our peers' attitudes shape our own opinions on things? I'm not really going to be answering these questions. These are just kind of thoughts that have been circling around in my mind for probably the past several years as more and more things sort of push me to make this video. Something that someone said to me once about waxing, I can't remember how we got onto this topic, but somehow it came up in conversation. I think I mentioned something about how I'm kind of put off from waxing because the pain factor, like I have a pretty high pain tolerance. Like when I got my industrial pierced, when I got my nose pierced, like I could feel it, but it didn't hurt too badly. So I have put myself in situations where I like willingly subjected myself to pain, but I don't know, I had a traumatic experience with waxing, which I'll get to later in this video. So I think I probably like, I don't know, someone might have mentioned something about like they have like a waxing appointment, and I like made a comment about, well, like I don't know how you can put yourself through that because it hurts or something like that. I don't know. So that person responded and they were like, oh yeah, you know, it's painful the first few times, but like you get used to it. Like, why do we willingly put ourselves through pain for the sake of beauty? Now you could argue with what I mentioned about getting piercings or even tattoos. You know, that's putting yourself through a considerable amount of pain for aesthetics. I don't know, somehow it seems different when it's like, for lack of a better word, like landscaping. I don't know. To me, there just seems more of like a differentiation in my mind, but I guess you could argue that it's kind of the same thing. Why is it almost encouraged that people put themselves through pain for the sake of beauty? I feel like just based on, you know, what I hear people saying or comments in Facebook groups and things like that, it seems to me that waxing is more common than shaving, which I thought shaving would be more common. It could be because of a misconception regarding shaving, which I'll get to later in this video. That idea that you're putting yourself through pain for aesthetics that you've been sort of conditioned to aspire to or believe in or whatever you want to call it, that's never sat well with me. I also heard something on the radio a couple months back that made me really uncomfortable, and that was one of the major catalysts, like just kind of like pushed me over the edge and encouraged me to make this video. I was listening to a radio show. There were 3 hosts, I guess. There are 2 hosts and 1 co-host. There's a male and female host, and then a male co-host who occasionally appears on the show. The female host made a comment about how she had never really seen her armpit hair because I guess as long as she can kind of remember, she's always been shaving it, like from the time it started growing, shaving or waxing or whatever it is that she does. And so she was just kind of curious about what it looked like, and she was like, hey, maybe I'll just grow out my armpit hair. And immediately, both male hosts, the male host and the male co-host, both of them were like,
oh my god, that is absolutely so gross. It's so disgusting. You're a disgusting human being. How could you even think of doing something like that? You're gross.
And that kind of got me thinking, well, we don't have a problem with male body hair. Like, I can guarantee you, both of those male hosts, I promise you, they have armpit hair and they have all sorts of body hair. And no one ever tells them that they're gross, that they have body hair. No one tells them that, oh my god, you should be shaving that or waxing it or doing anything to get rid of it. But somehow, with women's body hair, it's a major issue. Why? Why the double standards? You could ask that about anything, male versus female, like why the double standards, but like, why? Really? Like, it's 2020, like why you gotta be like that? One more thing that I'll note under this category, there is a certain amount of, I call it privilege personally, that light-haired people, blonde people, fair-haired people have over dark-haired people. And that is blondes and various light-haired people, people who have light-colored body hair, You are not allowed to comment on this because I have heard so many blonde people complain about like, oh my god, I'm so hairy, my legs are so hairy, I gotta get them waxed. I gotta get my bikini wax, I gotta get this, I gotta get that. Your body hair is invisible to the naked eye and you can only see it under a microscope. Anyone with dark hair knows. Anyone with dark hair, and especially people with dark hair and fair skin, such as myself, you can see my body hair from like 2 miles away. So don't even complain to me, blonde people, that, oh my god, my legs are so hairy. No, I can't see any body hair. I don't know what you're talking about, so shut up. Dark hair in general, but dark hair on light skin is more noticeable. And I've always been very, very conscious of that. And the fact that you can see my body hair, even if I shave it, you can see the stubble. I have a 5 o'clock shadow in my armpits, on my legs, anywhere that I'm removing body hair. It sucks. It really sucks. So don't you dare complain to me that you need to remove your hair because I can't see anything. Point number 3, sort of catalyst number 3, just thinking about quarantine and how that's changed our social interactions, our habits, our daily routines, even to the point of like, is it worth getting dressed in the morning because you're at home all day, you're not running into anyone you know, so why not just wear like sweatpants and an old t-shirt every single day? And like, why do you need to shower? Things like that. People don't care about their appearance in quarantine, but at the same time, they do. Like, I've seen so many people posting pictures and just like saying things like, I haven't gotten dressed in like 3 days. I haven't showered in like a week. I've been wearing sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt and I haven't brushed my hair in like a month and a half or whatever. You don't care about your appearance, but somehow, for some reason, body hair just like tops okay, this is like the bare minimum that I'll do. Like, people are like, I'm not going to get dressed. I'm not going to brush my hair. I'm not going to do things that sort of constitute basic hygiene, but removing body hair is like, nope, gotta do that. And I don't know, it seems odd that like that's your priority. Like, you're not brushing your teeth. Like, you've been wearing the same sweatpants for a week and a half, but like shaving your legs is your priority. That just seems kind of odd to me. Because appearances aren't as important as they were before while everyone is staying at home, I was sort of wondering, will society's attitudes change towards women's body hair? And the answer is probably not. I've definitely seen a bunch of memes and just people talking about they're not going anywhere, so why do they need to shave their legs and so forth. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Maybe we're getting some more diverse habits, for lack of a better word. But at the same time, I was talking to someone, they made some offhand comment about like, oh, I shaved my legs because it was too much. What do you mean by too much? How much is too much? Obviously that answer differs depending on preferences, the way you were raised, your insecurities, so on and so forth. But it all comes down to personal preference, but deeper than that, it's how much were they conditioned to think that women's body hair is disgusting and undesirable and something that needs to be removed pronto. Yeah, that's pretty much why I'm making this video. Okay, one more PS kind of note. I don't know where I'm going to put this in the video, so I'm going to film it now. I'll just mention a sort of misconception / pet peeve of mine. I think I said I was going to put this in later in the video, but I'll just say it now. I've been seeing, and I actually used to believe this and because I was told this, but I have seen so many grown-ass women saying,
"Don't shave your legs, it's so bad for you, it makes your hair grow back thicker."
That is a complete misconception. It is absolutely not true. What happens when you shave your legs, or when you shave anything, when you shave hair, normally your hair looks kind of like this, right? Each strand is sort of, thicker, and then it sort of tapers off to a point at the end of the strand. When you shave your hair, you cut that off. This is not a good example. Where was the other thing that I used? So when you shave this down to, it's like a straight flat point, right? The texture of the hair itself hasn't changed. You haven't done anything with that hair. Well, okay, let's just assume you're not on like any hormonal treatments, which will actually change like or could change the composition of your hair or whatever. Let's just assume that all you've done is taken a razor and shaved your hair wherever it is. You've literally just cut the hair, like the same way that when you shave your head, if you shave your head, you're just cutting the hair just flat. So yeah, it'll feel thicker or sharper or whatever because you had like this nice thin tapered point and then you cut it so it's a flat point. All the edges are even, so it'll feel sharper to you. It'll feel thicker to you because you cut it to like a uniform edge. Compare that to waxing or laser or plucking or most other hair removal treatments where you're actually removing the hair like at the very tip. You're pulling it out or you're destroying it at the very end. So you're killing off that hair or you're pulling out that hair, and then when it grows back, it'll start fresh, and then the edges will kind of get worn down to something more tapered like that because it's rubbing against your pants or your socks or whatever, which is why your legs will feel smooth. So when you've waxed, for example, which it's always the people who wax their legs are the ones, or wax, body parts, are the ones who say that like, oh, shaving is bad for you. Like, I feel like it's always those people. Because when you're waxing, you're literally pulling the whole hair out and then it grows back fresh. So it's a brand new hair. So of course it feels softer because you haven't done anything to it yet. So yeah, that's my pet peeve. Let's go back to the turn of last century and let's talk about attitudes towards body hair in the early 1900s. So at the time, many people didn't have access to bathing. They lived in very close quarters. And because of the space and the lack of hygiene, people were susceptible to lice, to parasites, and so forth. Let's assume that everyone, was fully hairy. The hair, and this is, just a thing that we know today, hair traps sweat, and that sweat causes bacteria to build up and grow. There was sort of an attitude that removing body hair meant that you were more hygienic because you probably didn't smell as bad because you didn't have as much bacteria building up. And by the early 1900s, being clean shaven for men had become associated with basic hygiene. In 1904, the razor company Gillette, which we all know, patented the first safety razor, which I'll throw up a picture on screen of what it looked like. It's very similar to today's disposable razor. The benefits of that were it was less dangerous and it's easier to shave without, nicking yourself, because I guess a traditional razor was pretty much just like a blade that you're putting against your face or wherever else you choose to shave. And the safety razor had a guard, so I think you were less likely, you're still like shaving against your face or wherever, but there was something in place to prevent you from like literally slicing off all your skin, which is great. Because of this also, it was easier for men to shave at home rather than going to a barber, which I guess is what they used to do to get shaved, whatever. As a result, being clean shaven became very trendy and easy to do it yourself. Marketing for men's grooming products at the time sort of perpetuated the ideas that I was just talking about. So clean-shaven men are considered modern and civilized and hygienic, rather than a man who goes to the barber, let's say once a week, and then, who knows what kind of bacteria is building up in his beard. I guess companies like Gillette realize sales are just booming by targeting men. Why don't we also target women and try and sell razors to them? And this is the part that pisses me off. From the early 20th century onwards to today, these ads promoted the idea that body hair on women is inherently masculine, it's indelicate, and it's unhygienic. So let's move forward a few years to the 1920s, when flapper culture, whatever you want to call it, became popular. So women started to wear sleeveless dresses. The hems of their dresses became shorter to about knee or midi length. So they were showing their armpits for the first time and their legs for the first time. Since those ads were perpetuating the idea that women's body hair was negative, women started to shave their legs and armpits. Now, an interesting thing to note is that advertisers didn't use the term shaving when referring to women's body hair because that was considered a masculine term or a masculine practice. So instead, the way that they sort of rephrased it when they were targeting women was that they encouraged women to have smooth legs and armpits, which is actually still used in marketing today. Why is it? It's so hilarious to think about, but it also pisses me off. Why is it that, for example, Venus commercials, you've got a woman shaving her already hairless legs with a razor? What is that razor doing? There is absolutely zero hair on those legs. I know it's like people feel very uncomfortable when they see women's body hair, and that would mean they'd have to hire models, wait for them to grow out their leg hair, and then shave it off. Sure. But like, if your purpose is to attract your demographic or relate to your demographic, then like, don't you want your demographic to see themselves in the commercial? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. It's just like, it's so hilarious in an angering kind of way to watch those commercials, because it's just like, come on, man. Like, you're not fooling anyone. We can see that there was no hair on those legs to start with. It's just ridiculous. An interesting thing that I found was at the time, so sort of the early 1900s, women who had facial hair, and there were women who had facial hair, these companies did market to them as well, but instead of razors, which again are considered masculine, they were encouraged to wax or bleach or use some sort of hair removal cream, like that basically dissolves the hair. So like something like Nair, for example. They were encouraged to do that to remove their hair or to lighten their hair rather than shave it off, which I find interesting. And even today, women shaving their faces is still considered kind of stigmatized, I think. Like, I know I personally found it kind of shocking when Jaclyn Hill posted a video of like how she shaves her face. And I was just kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Like, you don't see too many women doing that. And I feel like for me personally, I feel like that almost like gave me permission, if you will, to start shaving my face. I don't know. I found it interesting. Even like when I got laser hair removal, which I got kind of on my cheeks, sideburns, I think my neck as well. So basically what they have to do to do laser hair removal is first they have to shave down all of your hair, and then they're basically burning the hair follicle in whatever area so that it kills the hair there and then it won't grow back. It's sort of like encouraging your body to, like, you know, it'll try and grow back a few times and then it's like, no, you're not coming back. So even when the laser technician shaved my face, like she literally took like a, I don't know, like a Venus or Gillette or whatever razor and like shaved my face. I was like,
No!
But yeah, I find that interesting. And if you guys are interested in hearing about my laser hair removal experience in more detail, let me know in the comment section below and I can do a video about that. It's not really something I talk about that often or like almost ever. Like, I've told very few people about it, but if you guys want to hear my experiences, I'm happy to talk about it. So I found two sources. I tried to get like pretty scientifically backed up sources, or at least like high quality journalism. I did my best. So the first source that I found was from insider.com, same people who own Business Insider, and they seem to be fairly reputable. And this was an article about the pros of growing your body hair. We've got 5 pros. Number 1, reduced infections. If you're shaving, or even if you're waxing, you're prone, I guess, to open skin, which makes sense, especially with like a brand new razor. You're more likely to cut yourself accidentally. I've done it many, many times. Even with waxing, if you're not careful and you don't really know what you're doing, you could accidentally rip the skin. If you don't clean up your wound properly, you're susceptible for infections. Particularly, the article talked about pubic hair, and because your pubes are kind of like a shield for your genitals, any cuts in that area can potentially cause you to be more susceptible to infections such as MRSA, Streptococcus, and Staphylococcus aureus. I don't know if I pronounced those right. That particular point was like, you know, you're susceptible to these infections according to Cosmopolitan. So take that information as you will. Okay, so in case you guys are interested, MRSA is a strain of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and it's short for methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. Streptococcus is strep, I believe. It's a bacterium of a genus that includes the agents of souring of milk and dental decay and hemolytic pathogens causing various infections such as scarlet fever and pneumonia. So, sounds like it can be real unpleasant. Staphylococcus aureus, it is a common cause of skin infections, including abscesses, respiratory infections, such as sinusitis and food poisoning. Interesting. But then it's like also present in 20 to 30% of the population. It can be found in your skin flora, in the nostrils, and as a normal inhabitant, Wikipedia says, of the lower reproductive tract of women. Ooh. So it looks like there's kind of a spectrum of severity. It can cause pimples, which are they're annoying, but they're not like life-threatening or anything like that. It could also cause pneumonia, meningitis, toxic shock syndrome, and sepsis. So pretty severe. Point is, you don't really want to introduce it into your system if it's not already there, because you could develop some serious medical conditions. So that is one pro for not removing body hair. Number 2, and this I'm kind of skeptical about. So this is specifically relating to women's body hair. I think, from what I understood in the article, allegedly, the longer your body hair grows, the more pheromones are released. So there's a male pheromone called, I'm gonna have to read this off of here, androstadienine, and allegedly it's been shown to increase women's libido, according to the National Institute of Health. Based on that, I guess if women's body hair releases more pheromones, then for male-female couples, the hairier a woman is, the more likely she is to attract a potential mate. I don't know how true that is. Number 3, allegedly, you can have better sex or better orgasms if you grow your body hair. And again, I'm kind of skeptical about this one as well. Pubic hair follicles have nerve endings at the base, so, I mean, obviously they end under your skin where your nerves are. The pubic region is obviously more sensitive, there are more nerve endings there. So according to this article, if you shave or if you wax hair in your pubic region, you're like not damaging, but I guess temporarily kind of like numbing those nerve endings or those sensations during sex. Whereas like, I guess if you let everything kind of grow, your nerve endings are more sensitive and therefore it's more pleasurable. Like I get the logic, I just don't know how scientifically sound that is. Okay, the next one, armpit hair reduces chafing, which is definitely true. I can confirm, especially with freshly shaven armpits. Even when like, I know you're not supposed to put deodorant on like right after you shave, but like even when I don't put deodorant on, I've had rashes sometimes for weeks after, like just from chafing and whatnot. And it's so unpleasant. So I can definitely see why you'd advocate to, you know, grow out your armpit hair. So I mentioned earlier there was a story about my traumatic experience with waxing. So here is a good place to tell that. Gotta get hydrated for this story. I bought one of those at-home waxing kits, like the kinds with the strips that kind of look like panty liners, and you're supposed to like rub them in between your hands to like warm them up, and then you peel them off, and then you stick them wherever you want, and then you rip it off. Oh, it could be that I just didn't know what I was doing, which is very likely. I think it was like it's probably a teenager at the time. And I think it was like the second time that I had ever used one of those kits. Never again. I ripped off my hair, but I also ripped off some of my skin. And that area was bleeding for so long. It was irritated forever. I think it like actually scarred a little bit for like now I think it's fine, but for a while it was kind of like red and irritated. It would get rashes a lot. It completely turned me off ever wanting to get waxed at all. Doesn't matter where. Like I didn't want to go through that again because it was just so unpleasant. Just like thinking about it, like my armpits are like, ooh. I can definitely see the benefits in not removing the hair there. The thing that I actually wanted to try for years was getting laser hair removal in my armpits, which I don't know. I feel like that would also really irritate that area during treatment sessions. Because I'm very fair complexioned and because my natural hair color is dark, even when I shave my armpits with a new razor, like I feel like I get kind of like a 5 o'clock shadow there. And no matter how close I shave it, you can still see the stubble, which I used to be very insecure about. Now I'm like less insecure about it, but then I also don't really wear tank tops all that often. And I feel like even with like a short sleeve shirt, most people aren't going to be sticking their head in your armpit, so it probably doesn't matter. But I remember as a teenager, I used to be very, very insecure about that. All right, and then the last pro for why you should let your body hair grow, specifically relating to armpit hair, it can regulate your body temperature. Hair traps heat depending on its position. So like when the weather's warm or when you're in a warm environment, it'll apparently lie down, I guess, like flat. Whereas in a cold environment, it'll stand up, which you've definitely seen before, I'm sure. When it lies down in a warm environment, it's to keep you cool. And then when it stands up in a cold environment, that's apparently to keep you warm. I guess the more body hair you have, the better insulation it can provide you with. This is just based on my research. I feel like most of these I'm like very skeptical about. So let's talk about the last article that I found, which talked about the pros and cons of various hair removal techniques. This was from Global News, which is a Canadian news media company, organization, network, a Canadian news media network. And they interviewed, I think, a couple different estheticians and various hair removal technicians, for lack of a better word. Yeah, so they talked to professionals. The first hair removal method that they talked about was waxing. And the pros of that are it's quick. It removes hair like at the base, like at the follicle. So as a result, it takes longer for it to grow back because like the whole hair itself has to grow back rather than shaving, which, as I mentioned before, it's just sitting on the surface. Some people notice that the hair grows back finer when you wax rather than doing other hair removal techniques, but I'm kind of skeptical about that one. I feel like it's more what I mentioned earlier, where when the hair itself is growing back and as it's rubbing against pants or socks or whatever, it sort of wears the hair down and might make it look finer. It might feel softer because it's not a rough edge. The cons, as I mentioned, it's kind of painful. Obviously depends on your pain tolerance, but you're sticking hot wax on your skin and then ripping it off. So yeah, it's gonna hurt. As I mentioned before, some people say you get used to it over time, but yeah. Some people also have reactions to the hot wax. I'm not sure if it's the wax itself or any other additives that they put in, like fragrances or things like that. So people can get irritation on their skin from waxing. They could have burning sensations, or they could have ingrown hairs. The second hair removal technique is shaving, which I've mentioned extensively throughout this video. The pros are it's easy, cheap, accessible, and fast. The cons, it can cause irritation because you're taking a blade and running it across your skin. Granted, there is a guard, as I mentioned, but still can irritate the skin. As I mentioned, if you cut yourself, you're at risk for infection because of open sores if you're not cleaning them and dealing with them properly. You could also have ingrown hairs. That's quite common. Allegedly, I guess if you're shaving your face, you could have coarse stubble on your jaw, which I don't really know what that's referring to. It just said it like that in the article. I don't know if that means what I mentioned before about if you're cutting the hair, straight across, and it's going to feel sharper than a hair that's been growing and sort of exposed to various elements that will sort of file it down so it's softer feeling, or tapered at the end. I don't really know what that's referring to. And allegedly, people say that if you shave, more hair grows back the next time. I'm also not sure how legit that is. That kind of sounds like pseudoscience. So the third method of hair removal is threading. I've never actually done this myself. My mom has a few times. I know it's very popular in South Asian communities. I think it originated in India. I'm not 100% sure. Like India or Pakistan, I think. So I know in that part of the world it's fairly common to do, especially for your eyebrows. But I think it can be used to remove hair in other places as well. So the pros, it's great for sensitive skin because they're not actually putting any like extra stuff on there to remove. So you're not like, putting hot wax or shaving cream or anything like that. It's just literally the threads themselves. When you're removing hair on your eyebrows, you can be very precise because of how like thin the threads are. It kind of looks like, what do you call that? It kind of looks like dental floss, like it's very thin. You can be very precise and grab, I think, like individual, like you kind of grab like a section of hairs, but like you can pull out basically individual hairs. So it's great for that. The cons is it can be very time consuming, especially if you're doing it on yourself. And some people find it painful, but again, that just kind of depends on your personal pain tolerance. Next is laser hair removal, which I've also mentioned throughout this video. The pros is that it can be very long lasting. You can see your results. Sometimes the hair never grows back, or it doesn't grow back as thick and populous as it used to be. If that's what you're looking for, then that is a pro. The cons is the price. It can be pretty expensive, especially compared to the other hair removal methods. It's very expensive. It can also take several weeks for it to take effect or for you to be able to start seeing results. Also depends on how often your sessions are. And that sort of also factors into the price. So I think you usually need about 5 to 10 sessions. I can't remember. So it's something like that. You need several sessions. So because of that, you're paying a lot of money rather than, and this is like over the course, I can't remember how often you typically go for that. But yeah, it's pretty pricey. Another con is that the success sort of varies based on your skin tone or skin pigmentation. This is just like based on what I've heard. I haven't actually researched this too much aside from this particular article. Allegedly, people of color are more susceptible to getting burned when they get laser treatment because of the way that their skin absorbs the light from the lasers. I don't know if that's true, but I have heard that laser hair removal is most successful on light-skinned people with dark hair, so pretty much any extreme contrast, because I don't really understand how laser hair works, but I guess it like sort of pinpoints, or the tech is able to sort of pinpoint the dark hairs on like, basically a contrasting surface, so the hairs are very visible. But there are people of color who have gotten laser hair removal. The article said people of color should go to someone who has experience doing laser hair removal on darker skin tones. Another con is that the hair can grow back, especially if the woman gets pregnant or there are any other like hormonal imbalances or changes, which is, I think, true, because hormone levels sort of affect your body hair. So that sounds right to me. And then lastly, hair removal creams. The pros are that it's cheap, it's relatively painless, although I have had burning before, and it's pretty quick. It usually takes about 20 minutes maximum. And I think the creams refer to both like bleaching creams and hair removal creams like Nair, where it basically like sort of dissolves the hair. The cons: it's not good for sensitive skin, which I can confirm, especially bleaching creams, which obviously it's heavy chemicals, but it can hurt. I've gotten irritation before that's lasted several days. These types of creams can cause, I guess for lack of a better word, allergic reactions. So burning, hives, itchiness, that sort of thing. In conclusion, after all that, where do I stand? I'll probably still do one form or another of hair removal. But I don't know, lately I've just kind of been like, I'll do it when I am going out in public, I guess, and sort of feel the societal pressure to remove my hair. But, in the winter, like, if I'm not showing my legs or my armpits, like, why do I need a shave? It just kind of seems like a waste of time and a waste of money and a waste of effort. So don't really see the point. It pisses me off that women's hair removal started out as a way for a company to sell more products and to expand into the female demographic. Now it's gotten to the point where it's not only the norm, it's the expectation across multiple cultures, multiple societies, Eastern and Western cultures. And it's not just that you're considered gross if you don't remove your body hair. Like, I remember several years ago now when Miley Cyrus grew out her like armpit hair or whatever, which, okay, side note about that. So she grew out her armpit hair, but I remember she was wearing like something, it was like basically like a high-waisted bikini bottom. Like, that's what it looked like. So she had all of her kind of like pubic hair that would have been visible. She had all of that removed, but she had armpit hair, and it just sort of seemed like a bit of a contradiction, because it's like, okay, if you're making a statement about women's body hair and you decided to grow out your armpit hair, which is cool, fine, that's your body, you can do what you want. Why not make what I would argue to be an even more powerful statement by, also growing out the bush below? It just seems like, on the one hand, you're making a statement about women's bodies and autonomy and things like that, and then at the same time, you're conforming to a patriarchal view of what women's bodies should look like, and it seems like a bit of an oxymoron and a bit of a contradiction, in my opinion. It's gotten to the point, like, whenever I see posts on social media or whatever about women growing out their body hair, and the comments are like,
ew, so gross, disgusting.
It's not just society's standards, it's our own personal standards. We're conditioned to think that for women, whenever we see body hair, it's like, oh, it's gross, it must be removed. Or when we see it on other women, ew, that's gross. Like, why are you doing that? That's disgusting. It just seems like if we've gotten this far with women's rights, like it's been, 100 years or whatever since women got the vote, it seems like we're taking a step backwards by criticizing women's bodies and their right to do what they want with their body hair by making comments like that or by having attitudes like that. That's just my opinion. My goal on my channel is to promote positive self-esteem and sort of perpetuate the idea that beauty comes in all shapes and sizes. I just think that we should sort of retrain our minds to think differently about women's body hair and not be so negative about it. I'm not saying everyone should grow out all of their body hair and, we shouldn't remove any hair at all. That just seems a bit too extreme to me. That's kind of along the same vein of burning the bras in like the 60s and 70s. I just think our attitudes towards what women do with their bodies should change. It's your body, do whatever the fuck you want with it. Not who cares, because a lot of people clearly care very much about this. If people actually watch this video, I'm prepared for a lot of hate and arguments, which I don't feel like dealing with, but I'm prepared for that because people have a lot of strong opinions about this topic. But yeah, so I guess at the end of the day, if you want to grow your body hair, either some of your body hair or all of it during quarantine, like go for it. You're not going out anywhere. You're not impressing anyone because we're all isolated during this time. So whatever, it doesn't matter. Similarly, if you want to remove some or all of your body hair during quarantine, that's also completely within your rights and go for it. I guess what I want to say is do whatever you want with your body, but don't be so judgmental towards other people and what they do with their body. It shouldn't matter at the end of the day, and I don't really know how else to end this video, but that's about all that I have prepared to say on this topic. I know it's a bit different than my usual content, but if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to sound off below and let me know what you think about this topic. It's something that I'm very vulnerable about. It's something that I'm sure a lot of women feel very vulnerable and self-conscious about, but I feel like this is a discussion that is important and should be had. If I can spark a discussion or just sort of get you thinking about this topic, then I've done my job, and I'll see you guys in my next video.